My name is Nora, and at 43, I used to think I knew what it meant to protect my family. I had two beautiful children who were my entire world. But last year, my son Jackson stopped speaking to me after discovering I had covered up his sister Amelia's affair. I thought I was preserving our family name, keeping us together. Instead, I taught my son that in our home appearances mattered more than honesty. The truth I hid to protect us was the very thing that tore us apart. Before I share how I lost my son forever, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if family drama stories resonate with you. I grew up in Westport, Connecticut, in a neighborhood where houses looked like they belonged in magazines and everyone drove cars that cost more than some people make in a year. My parents were respected members of the community. Dad was a corporate lawyer, Mom, a former debutante turned charity organizer. From an early age, I learned that what others thought about our family was paramount. When I met Richard during my sophomore year of college, I knew he was the kind of man my parents would approve of. Tall, handsome, from a good family, and studying to become a surgeon. We married a year after graduation, and I seamlessly transitioned from being the perfect daughter to the perfect wife. Our daughter Amelia was born when I was 26. From the moment she arrived with her big blue eyes and blonde hair, she was the spitting image of Richard. She was a charming child, always the center of attention at any gathering. She knew how to work a room even before she could properly form sentences. Richard adored her, showing her off at hospital functions and country club events. 2 years later, Jackson joined our family. Unlike his sister, he had my dark hair and quieter disposition. While Amelia demanded attention, Jackson observed. He was thoughtful, sensitive, and possessed an innate sense of right and wrong that sometimes made me uncomfortable with its clarity. Our family quickly became fixtures in our affluent community. Richard's career flourished, and he became one of the most sought-after cardiothoracic surgeons on the East Coast. I managed our social calendar, volunteered at the right charities, and made sure our home was always ready for impromptu visits or the dinner parties we hosted for Richard's colleagues. Richard was obsessed with our family name. The Bradford name had been respected for generations in medical circles, and he was determined to uphold and elevate that legacy. Our children were extensions of that ambition. They attended the best private schools, participated in the right extracurricular activities, and were expected to represent the family impeccably at all times. As the children grew, I naturally fell into the role of family peacekeeper. When Amelia had a tantrum before a family photo, I was the one who calmed her down and fixed her hair. When Richard was too harsh with Jackson about a B on his report card, I was the one who mediated. And when small problems threatened our perfect image, I became adept at covering them up. The first time I remember actively hiding something significant was when Amelia, at 14, shoplifted a lipstick from the mall. The store called me instead of the police because the manager recognized her as Dr. Bradford's daughter. I apologized profusely, paid for the item, and made Amelia promise never to do it again. I never told Richard. I convinced myself I was protecting everyone. Amelia from her father's disappointment, Richard from the stress our family from a tarnished reputation. Jackson, even as a child, was different. Once at 9 years old, he broke an expensive vase while playing inside. When Richard came home, Jackson immediately confessed. When I suggested we could have blamed it on the housekeeper, Jackson looked at me with confusion. That night, he asked me, "Why would we say someone else did it when it was me?" As the children entered their teenage years, the differences between them became more pronounced. Amelia was stunning, social, and skilled at getting what she wanted. She could charm her way out of trouble and manipulated situations to her advantage. Jackson, meanwhile, developed into a young man of principle. He was popular, but in a different way. His friends respected him because he was reliable, honest, and genuinely cared about others. Amelia and I shared shopping trips and spa days. We discussed fashion, and she confided in me about boys. My relationship with Jackson was built on deeper conversations. We shared a love of books, and often discussed what he was reading. He would tell me about his dreams of becoming an environmental lawyer, and I was his sounding board for working through moral dilemmas. Our family traditions emphasized unity and loyalty above all. Richard often said at dinner, "The world is full of people who will try to tear you down. In this family, we stand together, no matter what." It sounded noble, but over time, those words would take on a twisted meaning none of us anticipated. Looking back, I can see how I was teaching my children different lessons without realizing it. To Amelia, I demonstrated that problems could disappear if you knew how to manage appearances. To Jackson, I showed that the truth was valuable but flexible. I was planting seeds that would eventually grow into a forest that would separate us. Amelia graduated from Dartmouth with honors and moved to New York City to work in public relations. Her natural charm and social grace made her perfect for the job, and she quickly rose through the ranks. At a charity gala she was organizing, she met Michael Ellison, the young CFO of a growing tech company. He was handsome, wealthy, and from a family almost as status-conscious as ours. Their romance was a whirlwind. Within 6 months, Michael proposed with a diamond that made my own engagement ring look modest. The wedding planning consumed the next year of our lives. The Bradford Ellison wedding became the social event of the season. 250 guests at the Plaza Hotel, features in several society magazines, and a honeymoon that included 3 different countries. Through it all, I was swept up in the excitement and prestige. Richard was ecstatic that Amelia had made such an advantageous match. The Ellison family was old money with connections throughout the business world. The merger of our families, as Richard called it, elevated our social standing even further. Michael's parents, Gregory and Diana Ellison, were cut from the same cloth as Richard. They valued pedigree, success, and appearances. Diana took me aside at the rehearsal dinner and said, "Our children are reflections of us. Their success is our success. Their failures, our failures." I nodded in agreement, not realizing how prophetic those words would become. Jackson was 22 and in his final year at Columbia when his sister got married. He served as a groomsman, but seemed uncomfortable throughout the lavish celebrations. After the reception, as we were saying our goodbyes, he said to me, "Did anyone ever ask if Amelia loves him, or just the life he represents?" I dismissed his concern. "Of course she loves him, and there's nothing wrong with loving the life they'll build together too." He looked at me with those perceptive eyes that sometimes saw too much. "I hope so, Mom. For everyone's sake." The first year of Amelia and Michael's marriage seemed picture perfect. They bought a penthouse on the Upper East Side and quickly became fixtures in New York society. Amelia's Instagram was filled with exotic vacations, charity galas, and intimate dinners with influential people. But when she visited home alone for a weekend about 14 months after the wedding, I noticed something was off. She was more irritable, checking her phone constantly and deflecting questions about Michael. When I finally cornered her in the kitchen late one night, she admitted they were having adjustment issues. "He works all the time, Mom, and when he's home he's distracted. We barely talk anymore." "Marriage takes work, sweetie. Your father and I had our rough patches too." She twisted her massive engagement ring. "I just feel trapped sometimes, like I'm playing a role in someone else's life." I should have recognized the warning signs, but instead I offered platitudes about patience and communication. What I didn't say was that sometimes the role was the life. That's what I had accepted in my own marriage. Over the next few months, Amelia's behavior became increasingly concerning. She would call me clearly intoxicated in the middle of the afternoon. Her spending, always extravagant, became excessive. $3,000 shopping sprees, spontaneous weekends away with her friends while Michael was working. Once I received a call from a restaurant manager because Amelia had gotten into a loud argument with another patron and couldn't pay her bill because she'd forgotten her wallet. When Jackson came home for Christmas that year, he immediately sensed the tension. Amelia and Michael arrived separately. She was distant, and he seemed weary. during dinner when Michael mentioned their plans to visit his parents in Aspen for New Year's. Amelia rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath. Later, Jackson found me in the kitchen and asked directly, "What's going on with Amelia and Michael?" "Nothing unusual. All couples go through adjustments." "Mom, they look miserable. And did you see how she acted when his parents called earlier? She left the room." "She's just stressed from work," I said, but even I didn't believe it. Jackson shook his head. "Why do we always pretend everything is fine when it clearly isn't? Don't you think honesty would help them more than pretending?" That was the first time Jackson directly challenged our family's approach to problems. I deflected his concerns and changed the subject, but his words stayed with me. In February, Michael's mother called me with concerns. "Nora, I don't mean to pry, but is everything all right with Amelia? She's canceled on us 3 times in the last month, and when we saw them for dinner last week, she seemed distant." I immediately went into damage control. "She's just overwhelmed with a big campaign at work. You know how dedicated she is to her career." The lie came easily, and Diana seemed relieved to hear it. After I hung up, I called Amelia and warned her to be more attentive to her in-laws. "They're starting to notice something's wrong," I told her. "Let them notice," she said flippantly. "Maybe Michael will finally pay attention to me instead of his precious company." That spring, I began covering for Amelia more frequently. When she missed an important family function at the Ellisons, I told them she had food poisoning. When Michael called looking for her one weekend, I said she was shopping with me in Connecticut, though I hadn't seen her in weeks. Each lie built on the previous one, creating an increasingly complex web of deception. I told myself I was protecting my daughter's marriage, giving her time to work through whatever phase she was experiencing. In reality, I was enabling her behavior and deepening the dysfunction. Jackson graduated from Columbia that May and came home for a few weeks before starting an internship with an environmental law firm in Washington, D.C. During his stay, he witnessed me fielding a call from Diana Ellison, making excuses for why Amelia and Michael had to cancel a long-planned vacation with them. After I hung up, he confronted me. "Why are you lying for Amelia?" "I'm not lying, I'm smoothing things over." "Mom, you just told Mrs. Ellison that Amelia can't come to Nantucket because of work, but I literally just got off the phone with her, and she's planning to go to Miami with her friends that weekend." I felt my face flush. Sometimes in a marriage, you need to create space. Jackson looked at me with growing frustration. "Space is one thing, lies are another. Does Michael even know where his wife is going to be?" I didn't answer, which was answer enough. Jackson's voice grew quieter, more intense. "This is wrong, Mom. You're not helping them by covering up whatever's happening. You're making it worse." "You don't understand, Jackson. Family protects family. Sometimes that means managing difficult situations discreetly." "Is that what we're calling lies now, being discreet?" His disappointment was palpable. "What happens when the truth comes out? Because it always does." I dismissed his concerns as naivety. "When you're married, you'll understand that what people don't know won't hurt them." I didn't realize then that I was driving a wedge between us. With every deception I justified, every truth I dismissed as unimportant in the face of appearances. The moment I discovered Amelia's affair is seared into my memory. It was an ordinary Tuesday in September. I had gone to New York to have lunch with Amelia, but when I arrived at her office, her assistant told me she had called in sick. Concerned, I went to her apartment using the spare key she had given me. The penthouse was silent when I entered, but I heard the shower running. I called out, "Amelia, it's Mom. Are you okay?" There was no answer, so I set my purse down on the kitchen island. That's when I saw her phone light up with a text message. I wouldn't normally look at her private messages, but the preview caught my eye. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. Same hotel on Thursday." My heart raced as I picked up the phone. The message was from someone named JW Work Project. I scrolled up slightly and saw intimate messages that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. I was still standing there, phone in hand, when Amelia emerged from the bedroom in a robe hair wet from the shower. She froze when she saw me. "Mom, what are you doing here?" I held up her phone. "Who is JW Work Project?" Her face drained of color before she composed herself. "Give me my phone." "Amelia, are you having an affair?" She snatched the phone from my hand and scrolled through the messages, assessing how much I had seen. Finally, she looked up at me, a strange mix of defiance and vulnerability in her eyes. "His name is James Wilson. He's a client at the firm." "How long has this been going on?" 4 months, she admitted, sitting down heavily on one of the bar stools. "Does Michael know?" She laughed bitterly. "Of course not. Michael doesn't notice anything unless it affects his precious career or what his parents think of him." I felt sick. "You need to end this, Amelia. Right now, before it destroys your marriage." Tears filled her eyes. "What if I don't want to? James makes me feel alive, Mom. He actually sees me not just the perfect Ellison wife I'm supposed to be." "That's the infatuation talking. It's not real." "It's more real than my marriage." Her voice rose. "Michael and I were just playing parts in some social performance. James and I actually talk, laugh, connect." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Affairs always seem exciting because they don't have the weight of real life attached to them. No bills, no responsibilities, no family expectations. But they're fantasies, Amelia. "Maybe I need a fantasy," she said quietly, "because reality isn't working for me." We argued for hours. I pleaded, reasoned, even threatened to tell Michael myself. But Amelia was unmoved. She wouldn't promise to end the affair, only to think about it. As I was leaving, she grabbed my arm. "You can't tell anyone, Mom. Not Dad, not Michael, not the Ellisons. Promise me." Against my better judgment, I promised. That evening, I told Richard about the situation. His reaction shocked me. "She needs to end it immediately and pray that no one ever finds out," he said, pacing our bedroom. "Do you realize what this would do to our standing with the Ellisons if it got out? The scandal would be unbearable." I stared at him. "That's what you're worried about, not our daughter's marriage falling apart. The marriage can be salvaged if she stops this nonsense now. But if this becomes public, there's no coming back from that humiliation." It was the first time I clearly saw how warped our priorities had become. But instead of challenging him, I found myself nodding in agreement. Together, we decided to contain the situation. Richard would speak to Amelia firmly about her responsibilities, and I would run interference with Michael and his family to prevent suspicion. The next morning, as I was making coffee, Jackson appeared in the kitchen. He was visiting for the weekend from D.C. "Morning, Mom." He kissed my cheek before pouring himself a cup. "Everything okay? You seem tense." "Just didn't sleep well," I said, forcing a smile. He studied me for a moment. "I heard you and Dad arguing last night about Amelia. Is she in some kind of trouble?" My pulse quickened. How much had he heard? No trouble. "Just some marriage growing pains." "Growing pains," he repeated skeptically. "Must be serious for Dad to say she needs to end it immediately." I felt cornered. "Your sister and Michael are going through a rough patch, that's all. Every marriage has them. A rough patch that needs to be kept from the Ellisons at all costs." His eyes bored into mine. "Mom, what's really going on?" I made a split-second decision that I would come to regret deeply. "Nothing you need to worry about. This is between Amelia and Michael." The lie hung between us. Jackson knew I was withholding the truth, and I knew he knew. But neither of us said it aloud. "If you say so." He set down his cup. "I'm going for a run." After that weekend, Jackson became more distant. Our phone calls, once lengthy and intimate, grew shorter and more perfunctory. He declined 2 invitations to come home, citing work commitments. Meanwhile, Michael began to notice changes in Amelia. One evening in October, he called me. "Nora, I'm worried about Amelia," he said, his voice strained. "She's been distant, disappearing for hours without explanation. When I ask where she's been, she gets defensive. Is there something going on that I should know about?" My throat tightened. "She's been under a lot of pressure at work, Michael. You know how demanding her job can be. This feels different," he insisted. "Last week she said she was having dinner with you in the city, but when I called your house, Richard said you were at a charity function in Greenwich." I scrambled for an explanation. "Oh, that was a miscommunication. I was supposed to meet her, but my event ran long, so we rescheduled." He paused. "Nora, I'm asking you directly. Is Amelia seeing someone else?" The moment of truth. I took a deep breath and betrayed my son-in-law. "Of course not, Michael. She loves you. She's just going through something right now, and she needs space and understanding." "You'd tell me if there was something I should know, right? I feel like I'm losing her." The guilt was overwhelming. "Of course I would. Just be patient with her." After hanging up, I called Amelia and warned her to be more careful. Instead of being grateful, she was annoyed. "You need to end this affair before you lose everything," I told her. "I can't," she said. "Not yet." I didn't know then that Jackson had made plans to meet Michael for lunch the following week. They had always gotten along well, and Michael had reached out needing someone to talk to. Jackson later told me he spent that entire lunch wrestling with what to say, knowing that his sister was betraying this man who was clearly suffering. In the end, Jackson's loyalty to family won out, and he didn't reveal what he suspected. But that lunch changed something fundamental in him. He saw firsthand the damage our family's secrets were causing. The deception continued to escalate. I created fake events that Amelia was supposedly attending with me. I answered Michael's concerned texts when Amelia was with James. I even met Amelia for lunch near the hotel where she would later meet her lover, so that if anyone saw her in the area, there would be an innocent explanation. Each lie required 3 more to maintain it. It was exhausting and demoralizing, but I was too entrenched to stop. Richard supported the deception, reminding me that our family reputation was at stake. In November, Jackson came home unexpectedly on a Friday night. He found me in the study on the phone with Amelia, helping her craft a story about a work emergency to explain why she wouldn't be home that weekend. She was actually planning to go to a bed and breakfast in Vermont with James. When I hung up, Jackson was standing in the doorway. "Was that Amelia?" he asked. "Yes, she's swamped with a work crisis." "Interesting," he said, his voice cool. "Because I just ran into her friend Shannon at the train station. She mentioned Amelia is taking a romantic weekend with Michael to reconnect." My face flushed. There was a change of plans. "Stop lying, Mom." His voice was quiet but intense. "I know Amelia is having an affair. And I know you and Dad are covering for her." I sat down heavily, the weight of the deception suddenly unbearable. "How did you find out?" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that you're helping her betray her husband. Do you have any idea what that makes you?" "I'm protecting my daughter," I said defensively. "No, you're protecting her from the consequences of her own choices, and in the process, you're hurting an innocent person." His eyes were full of disappointment. "This isn't who I thought you were, Mom." "You don't understand how complicated marriage can be, Jackson." "I understand the difference between right and wrong, and this is wrong." He turned to leave, then looked back. "Just so you know, the truth always comes out eventually. And when it does, it's going to destroy more than just Amelia's marriage." His words were prophetic, but I was too deep in the lies to heed the warning. Instead, I doubled down recruiting Richard to help maintain the deception. Together, we created an elaborate facade around Amelia's crumbling marriage. At Thanksgiving, all four of us Bradford performed for the Ellisons like actors in a well-rehearsed play. Amelia and Michael acted the part of the devoted couple. Richard and I beamed proudly at our daughter and son-in-law. Only Jackson refused to participate fully, remaining polite but distant throughout the festivities. After dinner, Diana cornered me in the kitchen. "Is everything all right with Jackson? He seems withdrawn." "He's just stressed about work," I said, adding another lie to the pile. "His first big case is coming up." Meanwhile, Michael was visibly suffering. He had lost weight, and there was a sadness in his eyes that was painful to see. During dessert, when Amelia excused herself to take a phone call, his gaze followed her with such longing that I had to look away, ashamed of my role in his pain. That night, Jackson found me alone on the patio. "This can't go on, Mom. Look what it's doing to Michael, to all of us." "It won't go on forever," I assured him. "Amelia will come to her senses." "And what if she doesn't? How long are you willing to live this lie? How long am I supposed to watch you and Dad help Amelia destroy her marriage and betray a good man?" I had no answer for him, and as December arrived, bringing with it the weight of holiday expectations and family traditions, I felt the web of deception tightening around all of us, threatening to suffocate what remained of our family's integrity. The breaking point came 3 days after Christmas. Jackson had reluctantly joined us for the holiday, but the tension in the house was palpable. Amelia and Michael were staying with us, sleeping in separate rooms under the guise of Michael having a cold that Amelia didn't want to catch. That morning, Jackson had borrowed my laptop to check his work email since his was updating. When he opened the browser, my email was still logged in with an open message from Amelia with the subject line, "Cover for Thursday." Later, he told me he hadn't meant to invade my privacy, but the message preview was impossible to ignore. "Mom needs you to back me up. Told him I'm having dinner with you and Dad, but I'll be with Jay at the usual place. If he calls, say plans changed, and I'm shopping with friends from work. Getting harder to manage. Maybe time to end things with me." Jackson was still staring at the email when Amelia walked into the kitchen. She saw him at my laptop, and her face drained of color. "What are you doing?" she demanded. He turned the screen toward her. "The better question is, what are you doing, Amelia?" She lunged for the laptop, but he moved it away. "How much do you know?" she asked, voice trembling. "Enough." His voice was ice cold. "Enough to know you're cheating on Michael and Mom and Dad are helping you cover it up." "It's not that simple," she started, but he cut her off. "Actually, it is that simple. You made vows, and you're breaking them. And our parents are helping you lie to an innocent man who loves you." Their voices had risen, and I entered the kitchen to find them facing off. "What's going on?" I asked, though I could guess from their expressions. Jackson held up my laptop. "Care to explain this, Mom?" As I read the email on the screen, my stomach dropped. "Jackson, this is between your sister and me." "No, it's between Amelia and her husband, but somehow our entire family has been dragged into this deception." He looked between us with disgust. "Do either of you understand what you're doing, the damage you're causing?" Amelia's face hardened. "You have no idea what my marriage is like. Michael doesn't love me. He loves the idea of me, the perfect wife for his perfect life." "So divorce him," Jackson shot back. "That would at least be honest. It's not that easy. Because of the prenup, or because you don't want to give up the Ellison lifestyle?" Jackson's words hit their mark, and Amelia flinched. I tried to intervene. "Jackson, you don't understand the complexities of marriage." "Stop saying that!" he exploded. "Stop acting like betrayal and dishonesty are complex adult concepts that I'm too naive to grasp. This isn't complex. It's wrong." Richard appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. "What is going on here?" before either Amelia or I could speak. Jackson turned to his father. "Did you know Mom is actively helping Amelia cheat on Michael? That they're lying to his face while she sees another man? Richard's expression darkened. Lower your voice. Michael could hear you. Jackson stared at his father in disbelief. That's what you're worried about. Not that your daughter is having an affair, but that her husband might find out. This is a family matter, and we will handle it privately, Richard said firmly. Handle it? Jackson laughed bitterly. You've been handling it for months, and all you've done is enable Amelia's betrayal and become liars yourselves. The kitchen door swung open, and Michael stood there, his face ashen. What betrayal? The room froze. How long had he been standing there? What had he heard Amelia recovered first? Nothing, Michael. Just a family disagreement. But Michael was looking at Jackson, sensing an ally in a house full of deceivers. Jackson, if there's something I should know, please tell me. In that moment, I watched my son make a choice that would change all of our lives. I saw the conflict in his eyes, the war between family loyalty and his own moral compass. Michael, he said slowly, you should ask Amelia about James Wilson. The name hit the room like a thunderbolt. Amelia gasped. Richard cursed under his breath, and Michael's face crumpled as the truth he had suspected but denied was finally confirmed. James Wilson, your client. Michael turned to Amelia. The one you've been working late with all these nights. Amelia was silent, but her face told him everything he needed to know. Michael turned to me, betrayal raw in his eyes. Did you know? All those times I called you worried about our marriage, did you know she was seeing someone else? I couldn't speak, couldn't lie anymore, and my silence was admission enough. All of you knew? His voice broke. You've all been lying to me. Richard stepped forward. Michael, these situations are never black and white. We were trying to protect both of you while Amelia worked through this indiscretion. Indiscretion. Michael's laugh was hollow. Is that what we're calling it? He turned to Amelia. How long? She looked at the floor. 4 months. 4 months, he repeated. And your parents have been covering for you this whole time. While I poured my heart out to them, they knew you were with him. No one answered. No one could. Michael turned to leave, but Jackson called after him. Michael, I swear I just found out the extent of it. I suspected, but I didn't know for certain until today. Michael nodded slightly. At least someone in this family has a conscience. After he left, silence engulfed the kitchen. It was broken by Richard, who turned on Jackson with fury. Do you have any idea what you've done? The scandal this will cause. The scandal? Jackson's voice rose again. A good man just had his heart broken, his trust shattered, and his marriage destroyed. And you're worried about scandal. You had no right to interfere, Amelia hissed. This was my marriage, not yours. A marriage you were making a mockery of, Jackson retorted, with Mom and Dad's help. He turned to me, and the disappointment in his eyes cut deeper than any anger could have. Mom, you taught me that family means honesty and support. Was that all just talk? Does integrity mean nothing in this house? As long as the Bradford name stays pristine. Jackson, we were trying to give Amelia time to make the right decision, I pleaded. We were trying to hold the family together. By lying, by helping her betray her husband. He shook his head. You taught me that lies matter more than truth in this family. That loyalty means helping each other do wrong instead of helping each other do right. Richard stepped toward him. That's enough. You will not speak to your mother that way. Or what, Dad? You'll disown me? Cut me off. Go ahead. Jackson's voice was steady now. I'd rather lose my family's financial support than lose my self-respect. I reached for him. Jackson, please let's talk about this calmly. He backed away from my touch. There's nothing left to say, Mom. You've made your choices clear. And now, I'm making mine. What does that mean? I asked, my voice small. It means I can't be part of this anymore. This family, these values, this performance. He looked around at all of us. I was raised to believe the Bradford name stood for something honorable. Now I know it's just a facade covering lies and betrayal. He walked out of the kitchen, and minutes later, we heard the front door slam. Through the window, I watched my son walk down the driveway and out of our lives, carrying nothing but the clothes on his back and the weight of his disillusionment. In the days that followed, the carefully constructed Bradford image crumbled. Michael filed for divorce, refusing to keep the affair quiet, despite Richard's attempts to negotiate discretion in exchange for a more favorable settlement. The Ellisons, once our allies in social climbing, cut us off completely. And Jackson wouldn't answer my calls or emails. I had thought I was protecting my family. Instead, I had destroyed it from within. The aftermath of that December confrontation reshaped all of our lives. Michael moved out of the penthouse the same day, checking into a hotel and contacting a divorce attorney the next morning. Despite Richard's desperate attempts to contain the situation, Michael refused to keep the affair quiet. He didn't broadcast it vindictively, but he also didn't lie when friends and family asked why they were separating. As a result, the whispers began. At first, they were confined to close circles, but soon they spread throughout our social network. People who had smiled at us at charity galas now exchanged glances when we entered rooms. Invitations began to dry up. The Bradford name, which Richard had been so obsessed with preserving, became associated with scandal and deception. Amelia seemed shocked by the consequences of her actions. She had imagined a discreet divorce where she maintained her social standing and possibly transitioned to a new relationship with James. Instead, she found herself increasingly isolated. James, it turned out, was less interested in a public relationship than in a secret affair. When Amelia became available, he became scarce. "This is so unfair," she sobbed to me one evening in January. "I've lost everything because Jackson couldn't mind his own business." "You lost everything because of the choices you made," I said, surprising myself with the honesty. The months of deception had left me drained and disillusioned. We all did. Richard's practice suffered as some longtime patients requested transfers to other surgeons. The hospital board, concerned about personal distractions, passed him over for the department chair position he had been angling for. He became bitter, drinking more than usual and spending long hours at his study avoiding both Amelia and me. But the most painful consequence was Jackson's absence. I called him daily for weeks, each call going straight to voicemail. I sent emails that received no response. I even drove to his apartment in D.C. only to be told by his roommate that he wasn't home and wouldn't want to see me if he was. I left notes, care packages, and eventually a letter pouring out my regret and asking for forgiveness. The only response I received was a brief text, "I need space. Please respect that." The first holiday without him was Valentine's Day. Richard and I had always hosted a dinner for both children and their partners. That year, it was just the two of us across an oversized dining table, barely speaking. Richard blamed me for not controlling the situation better. I blamed him for prioritizing appearances over truth. We were united only in our misery. In March, I ran into Michael at a coffee shop in the city. I almost turned and fled, but he saw me before I could escape. To my surprise, he invited me to sit with him. "How are you, Michael?" I asked, my voice small with shame. "Getting better," he said. His face was thinner, but his eyes were clear. "The divorce will be final next month." "I'm so sorry," I said, meaning it more deeply than he could know. "For everything, for my part in it all." He studied me for a long moment. "Why did you do it, Nora? I always thought you cared about me." I did. I do." Tears filled my eyes. I convinced myself I was protecting everyone. Amelia from consequences, you from pain, our families from scandal. But I was wrong. So terribly wrong. The lies hurt more than the affair, he said quietly. Knowing that while I was pouring my heart out to you, you were helping her deceive me. I couldn't defend myself because he was right. I lost my way, I admitted. I lost sight of what really matters. Have you heard from Jackson? He asked, changing the subject. My heart clenched. No, he won't speak to me. Michael's expression softened slightly. I see him sometimes. We still meet for lunch occasionally. How is he? I asked eagerly. He's good, focused on his work. He's found an apartment of his own. Michael hesitated. He talks about you, you know. Not often, but sometimes. I think he misses you even if he's not ready to say it. That small crumb of hope sustained me for weeks. Jackson was thinking of me. Perhaps eventually he would forgive me. Spring came, and with it, further changes. Amelia, humbled by her fall from social grace, took a job with a smaller firm in Boston, wanting a fresh start away from the gossip. Richard and I rattled around our too-large house like ghosts, our conversations limited to practical matters. We had enabled each other's worst instincts for so long that we no longer knew how to connect authentically. I made more attempts to reach Jackson as his birthday approached in May. I sent a package to his office knowing he couldn't avoid it there. Inside was a photo album I had compiled of our best moments together. Pictures of us reading books side by side, hiking in Vermont, his graduation from Columbia. I included a note that simply said, I miss you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be better. 2 weeks later, I received an email from him. It was brief and formal. Mom, I received your package. I'm not ready to reconnect yet. I'm working through a lot of feelings about our family and the values I was raised with. Please give me the space I need right now. Jackson. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was communication. A tiny bridge across the chasm between us. Summer brought another painful milestone 1 year since Amelia's affair had begun. Richard suggested we take a vacation perhaps to Europe to get away from it all. But I couldn't bear the thought of more pretense, more running from reality. Instead, I did something that shocked him. I started therapy. Dr. Lawson was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who challenged my rationalizations and excuses from our first session. Why did you feel compelled to protect your daughter from the consequences of her own actions? She asked. Because that's what mothers do. I answered automatically. Is it, or is that what enablers do? Her words stung, but they also resonated. Week after week, I unpacked the toxic patterns that had defined our family. The prioritization of image over substance. The belief that the Bradford name was more important than Bradford integrity. The way Richard and I had modeled deception as a problem-solving strategy. In September, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. Jackson has mono. He's okay but pretty sick. Thought you should know. Michael. I immediately called Michael and got the address of Jackson's new apartment. Without telling Richard, I drove to D.C. the next morning. Standing outside Jackson's door, I almost lost my nerve. What if he turned me away? But concern for my son overrode my fear of rejection. I knocked, and after a long moment, the door opened. Jackson stood there, clearly ill in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair disheveled. He looked at me in surprise. Mom, what are you doing here? Michael told me you were sick. I held up a bag. I brought soup medicine and those ginger cookies you always wanted when you were sick as a kid. He hesitated, then stepped aside to let me in. His apartment was small, but neat, with bookshelves lining one wall and plants in every window. So very Jackson. You didn't have to come, he said, sitting heavily on the couch. I know, I replied. but I wanted to. You're my son, and you're sick. I spent the day caring for him. I made soup, changed his sheets, picked up his prescription. We didn't talk about the past or the rift between us. We just existed in the same space for the first time in 9 months, the familiar rhythm of mother and child temporarily overshadowing our estrangement. As I was preparing to leave, Jackson spoke. "Thanks for coming, Mom." "Anytime," I said, meaning it. "Jackson, I know you're not ready to talk about everything, and I respect that. But I want you to know I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand how I lost my way so badly." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "Good. That's good." It was a tiny step, but an important one. October brought Richard's 60th birthday. In previous years, this would have been marked with an elaborate party, dozens of guests, and careful orchestration of our perfect family image. This year, it was just the two of us at a quiet dinner. "Is this what our life has become?" Richard asked bitterly over dessert. "The two of us alone, while our children want nothing to do with us." "Amelia calls every week," I reminded him. "She's finding her way." "In a downgraded job in a second-rate city," he scoffed. "And Jackson won't even acknowledge my birthday." I set down my fork. "Richard, have you ever considered that we might be reaping what we sowed, that our obsession with appearances taught our children the wrong lessons?" He stared at me. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about how we valued the Bradford image over the Bradford reality. How we taught Amelia that problems should be hidden rather than solved. How we showed Jackson that lies were acceptable if they preserved the family reputation." "That's absurd," he sputtered. "We gave them everything, the best schools, the best opportunities." "But what values did we give them?" I pressed. "What did we teach them about integrity, about honesty, about facing consequences?" The conversation devolved into an argument that ended with Richard sleeping in the guest room. But it marked a turning point for me. I could see clearly now how our priorities had been fundamentally skewed, and I was determined to find a way forward based on truth rather than appearances, even if that path was harder and lonelier. In November, I wrote Jackson a letter unlike any of my previous attempts at reconciliation. I didn't beg for forgiveness or try to explain away my actions. Instead, I took full accountability for my choices. I wrote about how I had lost sight of the values I claimed to hold, how I had prioritized the appearance of family over the substance of family, how I had betrayed not only Michael, but also Jackson himself by modeling dishonesty as loyalty. I ended the letter. "I don't expect this to fix what's broken between us. Some trust once shattered can never be fully restored. But I want you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. You were right about everything, and I am profoundly sorry for the pain my choices caused you, Michael, and even Amelia herself. I am trying to live more honestly now, even when it's uncomfortable. You taught me that lesson, and it may be the most valuable gift a son has ever given his mother, though it came at a terrible price." 2 weeks later, on a cold December morning, I received a text from Jackson. "I got your letter. I'd like to meet for coffee next Saturday if you're free. Just us." My hands trembled as I responded, "I'll be there." 2 years have passed since that devastating Christmas when our family fractured along the fault lines of our own making. It's been a journey of painful self-discovery and gradual healing for all of us in different ways. After receiving my letter, Jackson agreed to meet me at a small coffee shop halfway between our homes. I arrived early, my stomach in knots, uncertain what to expect. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. Not because his appearance had changed dramatically, but because there was a confidence and clarity in his bearing that hadn't been there before. He seemed more fully himself, unburdened by the weight of family expectations. We sat across from each other, two steaming mugs between us, like a fragile bridge. "Thank you for meeting me," I said. He nodded. "Your letter was different from the others." "Because I'm different," I replied. "Or trying to be." He studied me carefully. "Tell me about therapy." And so I did. I told him about the painful process of examining the beliefs and behaviors that had led to our family's implosion. The doctor, Lawson, had helped me see the patterns that had shaped our family dynamic for decades. How I was learning slowly and imperfectly to value truth over comfort, authenticity over appearance. "Dad thinks it's ridiculous," I admitted. "He says I'm airing our dirty laundry to a stranger." A small smile flickered across Jackson's face. "That sounds like Dad." "Richard and I are struggling," I said honestly. "We built our marriage on shared values that I now question. He feels betrayed by my changes just as I feel trapped by his rigidity." "Are you thinking about divorce?" he asked directly. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me thinks we could find a new way forward together. Another part wonders if that's possible when we see the world so differently now." We talked for 3 hours that day. I learned that Jackson had been in therapy too, working through the disillusionment of discovering his family wasn't what he thought it was. He had found supportive friends and mentors who valued the integrity he possessed. He was excelling at his job, recently winning his first major environmental case. "And Michael?" I asked cautiously. "Do you still see him?" "Regularly," Jackson said. "He's doing well. Dating someone new, actually. Someone who values honesty." The subtle dig wasn't lost on me, but I accepted it as deserved. Before we parted, Jackson said something that gave me hope. "I'm not ready for family dinners or holidays yet, Mom, but I'd like to try meeting like this again. Maybe once a month." It was more than I deserved, and I accepted gratefully. Over the following months, our cautious coffee dates continued. Sometimes our conversations flowed easily as we discussed Book's current events or his work. Other times, we carefully navigated the tender wounds of the past, excavating painful memories to examine them in the light of new understanding. Amelia's journey has been different, but no less transformative. The collapse of her marriage and affair, followed by the social ostracism she experienced, broke something in her that needed breaking. The sense of entitlement, the belief that rules didn't apply to her, the expectation that others would always clean up her messes. In Boston, without her social status to hide behind, she's had to build a life based on substance rather than appearance. 6 months ago, she called me in tears. "I finally get it, Mom," she said. "What Jackson was so angry about. Why what we did was so wrong." She had been on a date with a man she really liked only to discover he was married and hiding it. The betrayal and disgust she felt gave her a window into what she had done to Michael, what we had all done. "I was so selfish," she sobbed, "and you and Dad made it worse by helping me hide it instead of holding me accountable." It was a breakthrough moment for her and for our relationship. We could finally talk honestly about the damage our family culture had caused the false values we had prioritized. Amelia has reached out to Jackson seeking reconciliation. He's been more cautious with her than with me, but they've exchanged emails and had one brief video call. Small steps toward healing a relationship that may never be the same, but might eventually be honest. Richard has struggled the most with the family's transformation. The collapse of our perfectly curated image hit him hard. The whispers, the lost opportunities, the social demotion all wounded his pride deeply. Unlike Amelia and me, he hasn't embraced the painful growth that comes from acknowledging mistakes. Instead, he's become more entrenched in his belief that appearances matter above all. We still live together, but our marriage exists in a kind of limbo. Some days, I think we might find a way forward together. Other days, I recognize that our journeys may be taking us in fundamentally different directions. Last month, the most unexpected healing occurred. Jackson invited me to lunch in the city, and when I arrived at the restaurant, Michael was there too. My first instinct was to flee, certain this was a mistake. But Jackson had planned it, a careful step in a longer reconciliation process. Michael was reserved, but not unkind. We talked carefully around the edges of the past, at first focusing on present circumstances. But eventually, inevitably, we addressed the elephant in the room. I want you to know that I've never stopped being sorry for my part in hurting you, I told him. Not a day goes by that I don't regret the choices I made. Michael was quiet for a moment. I believe you, he said finally. And while I can't forget what happened, I'm not interested in holding on to anger anymore. It doesn't serve any of us. Jackson watched this exchange carefully, and I saw a weight lift from his shoulders. He had been caught between his relationship with Michael and his relationship with me. This lunch was his way of trying to integrate these parts of his life. As we were saying goodbye, Michael said something that moved me deeply. We were family once, Nora, and in some ways, we always will be, even if it's different now. I'm glad we can acknowledge that. 2 weeks ago, Jackson called with news. He'd been offered a position with a prestigious environmental law firm in Chicago and had decided to accept it. My heart sank at the thought of him moving farther away, just as we were rebuilding our relationship. I was hoping, he said hesitantly, that you might help me pack, if you have time. It was the first time he had invited me into his home, his life, since everything fell apart. Of course, I said yes. Spending the weekend helping Jackson prepare for his move, I was struck by the young man he had become. Principled, but not rigid. Kind, but not naive. He had emerged from our family's crucible stronger, clearer about who he was and what he valued. As we sorted through his books, deciding which to keep and which to donate, he handed me a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Inside the cover was an inscription in my handwriting, to Jackson on your 12th birthday. May you always have the courage to stand for what's right, even when it's difficult. Love, Mom. I read this again last year, he said quietly. It helped me understand some things. What things? I asked. That people can believe in values without living them. That good intentions don't justify bad actions. But also, that people can change, can find their way back to their better selves. I held the book carefully, remembering the mother I had been when I inscribed it, the mother I had hoped to be. I'm still trying to find my way back, I said. I know, he replied. That's why I'm here. Yesterday, Jackson texted me a photo of his new apartment in Chicago. It wasn't much to look at, yet boxes everywhere and bare walls. But on his bookshelf, prominently displayed, was that copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. I thought I knew what it meant to protect my family. I believed that keeping secrets, maintaining appearances, and shielding each other from consequences was what love looked like. I was catastrophically wrong. Real protection isn't hiding the truth. It's living truthfully, so there's nothing to hide. It's holding each other accountable rather than enabling harmful choices. It's building a family culture where integrity matters more than image. I lost my son because I betrayed these principles. I'm getting him back slowly and cautiously because I'm finally embracing them. The journey isn't over. Trust once shattered doesn't mend easily or completely. But each honest conversation, each acknowledged mistake, each step toward authentic living helps bridge the chasm between us. I thought family meant protecting each other from the truth. But real family is protecting each other with the truth. It's taken losing everything to learn this lesson. But now that I have, I'll never forget it again. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty and honesty? What would you have done in my situation, and what would you do differently now? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more reflections on family truth and the sometimes painful journey toward authenticity. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that it's never too late to rebuild on a foundation of truth.